Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today is going to be kind of the next step in the process. And I made the comment in the last video. I think probably some people might have been like, why are you teasing me with one or two comments and not giving me enough information to actually do the job. So today we're going to talk about what do we need to actually go out and correctly apply fertilizer or seed or anything like that. So we've already figured out how much we need based on our measurements of our yard and things like that. So we need three main tools today. We need what's called a broadcast spreader, we need a 5-gallon bucket, and we need a luggage scale. And these are the two that probably, I would say probably 75 to 80% of people really miss. On most bags of fertilizer or things like that, it will tell you what the spreader setting is. So not necessarily for this one because this isn't a Scott's spreader, but if you buy a Scott's product, it's going to tell you what you need to set your spreader to. And even if I go on, so this is manufactured by a company called Chapin, even if I go on to Chapin's website, I can look up and see the conversion between Scott's settings and Chapin. Don't fall into that trap. Do yourself a favor, spend $6 or $7 on Amazon, or I bought this at TJ Maxx, Walmart. This is just a luggage scale. Buy this guy and buy your $3 or $4 5-gallon bucket if you don't already have both of these pieces. So what we're going to use these for is to physically weigh out our product just like we measured, so we know how much product we need for each area, and just the proportion will tell us again. So if we've got a 25-pound bag of product and we know we only need 1/5 of it, that would be 5 pounds. So we're just going to dump it on in here, we're going to weigh it, and then we can dump it into our spreader. But that brings us to the more difficult decision, especially for new DIYers. So we're going to talk about spreaders in general today. I'm going to walk you through kind of how they work, and then also we'll talk about mine specifically, and then also kind of how do you go about purchasing or deciding on one particular spreader. So this right here is about $150. This is overkill for most people, especially again if you happen to be watching in this neighborhood. This is by no means an expensive spreader at $150. You can spend anywhere from about $15 all the way to $1,200. This is nowhere even near the middle of the road. And most professionals are going to tell you this is a piece of crap spreader. I disagree with them, but that's a whole different story. I think names come into it quite a bit. But when you go to a big box store, the one thing that you'll come to notice is that most of your models are all plastic. So these tires are rubber, they're pneumatic, so I can pump them up. Literally, they'll go flat every once in a while, I'll have to pump them up. Hoppers are almost always plastic, that's perfectly fine. But where things really come into play are the wheels and then the gears that drive those wheels. So again, we're going to walk through kind of how this spreader works, and then we'll also go and I'm going to do some voiceovers on the computer so that you guys can see what would you go and buy at a Home Depot or Lowe's. My suggestion would probably be to stay under $100. So all in here you might be at about $110 between the spreader and then the bucket and the scale if you don't already have one. But if you think about it, just doing the math, I normally save about $20 on every single application doing it myself. So it normally costs me between $15 and $30 to do it myself, where I would pay somebody $45. So just quick math, normally pay somebody about 6 times a year. So $15 times 6 is $90. You basically paid yourself back in a year. So let's hop into it. Let's talk about this spreader. All broadcast spreaders work the same way. There is another type of spreader called a drop spreader, but that's not what this is, and I wouldn't suggest buying that unless I guess if you're maybe under 2,500 square feet, then it wouldn't be a big problem. But for anybody over 2,500 square feet, I would suggest a broadcast spreader. So basically, you have a hopper. So this is our hopper, and this is why I wear sweatpants, because it doesn't preclude me from kneeling on the floor. But we have a hopper. We dump our product into this hopper, and we have holes down here. The product falls down through those holes onto a little wheel, and as you push it forward, spin your product out in your yard. So they all kind of work the same way.
A lot of them don't look like this, so mine has pneumatic tires so you can pump them up, and that solves some problems, and that's actually why I bought this particular spreader, is to get away from the plastic wheels. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to voicing over on some of the other products that are out there that you can buy at Lowe's or Home Depot to fill this kind of need, because again, you can't really go out there and spread any product without a spreader. So for any DIYers, we're going to talk about what kind of options you have. Now, if you are interested in this particular one, this came from Home Depot, and I can buy this through a bunch of different companies out there, but this particular product is listed, I think, as an 80-pound spreader, and if you go to a store, that's how they're going to sell them all. The one caveat there is I can guarantee you any of those products that claim that they have the capabilities to hold 80 pounds, there's no possible way. So don't buy something based on weight. Take a look at it and just kind of think to yourself, hey, how many bags of whatever product I'm spreading will fit in here? But the way this one works, I'm going to pull it out of the sun. So I have this handle up here. As I actuate that handle, that opens and closes the holes there. So the more open this is, obviously the more product that comes out. The more closed it is, the less product that comes out. So that's how we make sure that we're using the correct amount of product. 4 options up here on the screen that I'm going to toggle through, and this first one is actually what I suggested for smaller yards. So this is what's called a drop spreader, and you can see here this inside, basically what you have to do is you're literally only dropping exactly what you pass over, and that's why I suggest using this only for smaller yards. Now this is easier to control because you're not throwing anything out, but this is a Scotch drop spreader. All of these I just grabbed Home Depot because it's kind of the easiest one to look at, the way the screen capture was working here, but that's 62 bucks. But again, I probably wouldn't suggest that. And then we get into the broadcast spreaders. We kind of have like a good and a better and maybe a best, if we want to say that, for Scott's products that you can go and buy at Home Depot or Lowe's. So I mentioned here that I wanted to stay away from the plastic wheels, and I'll pop an image up on the screen about why. But this is the smallest broadcast spreader that Scott's makes, at least that's readily available. This is a pretty inexpensive model. I'll go to the back screen here in a second. I think it's 32 bucks. But all 3 of the Scott spreaders that I'm going to show you all have what's called an edge guard. And this allows us to kind of block product from one side or another. So if you go to Lowe's, they do sell a product that doesn't have this. It's like a middle cost between this and the larger, kind of what I was calling the better option. But this right here is a big help for new DIYers because it kind of keeps product out of your flower beds. If it's just fertilizer, it's not a big deal, but if you're throwing grass seed and you accidentally throw it into your flower beds, it's not the most fun situation. So this is a smaller spreader. You can't quite tell from the picture, but 36 bucks at Home Depot. So that kind of brings us to the better, like, middle option. This is a larger hopper. This is the edge guard here. This pull lever based on, let me see, this dial right here will allow it to open and close. So if you've got this dial on a 16, it's going to open more than if it's on a 3.5, and then that finger grip here allows it to open the hole to whatever that size is. And again, you've got this edge guard. So this one, the edge guard, you can actuate it here because you don't always want it on. But in this case, this one's 63 bucks. I mean, it's okay. It's not a problem. It just still has these plastic wheels. And again, I'm going to flash that image on the screen. Basically, what happens is you'll get a dark green lines. So maybe I'll put the image up here with it. But you'll get dark green lines at times because you'll get fertilizer that will build up inside these wheels, and you kind of like leave a trail of it, and then you'll extra fertilize an area and you'll get darker lines here. So it's just really important to make sure that you keep these wheels cleaned out and spray them off after each time you use it. I did mention the weight on mine where it says it was an 80-pound. In this case, they're saying 15,000 square feet. Again, I can guarantee you it won't hold 15,000 square feet of product, probably more like maybe 3,000 or 4,000. So this is kind of perfect for somebody who's in like a 2,500 square feet to a 7 or an 8,000 square foot yard. And then Scott's came out with a new, like what they're calling their best model, at least their homeowner best model. This one goes away from the plastic wheels. So it still all works the same way. In fact, this one, I think they actually integrated an iPhone holder up here, but that's really pretty much useless for somebody who's going to be out using the spreader for 5 or 10 minutes. So, but this is right about $100. And if you can spend the extra $30, it does make sense here to buy this. But I talked about before just some of the savings and cost savings. Buying a spreader and having it, to being able to put your own seed down, do your own fertilizer, it can be very cost effective. So please let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer them. And we're getting pretty close to needing to do this. So again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. Thanks, everyone. Happy mowing.